In this problem, we're being asked to determine the convergence or divergence of the given series using the divergence test or the nth term test. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take the limit as n goes to infinity of our general term, which is our cosine of n pi over 4. And what we're going to go ahead and do is to determine what this limit's going to be, I'm going to look at just a couple terms of what the cosine function does here. So at n equals 3, we'll start off. I would have gotten cosine of 3 pi over 4, and cosine of 3 pi over 4 would give me negative root 2 over 2. Now, I'll repeat again, n equals 4. What happens at n equals 4? I get cosine 4 pi over 4, which is cosine of pi, which is negative 1. If I go n equals 5, I get cosine of 5 pi over 4, which would give me another negative root 2 over 2. And if I repeat this process, maybe do one more, n equals 6, I would get cosine of 6 pi over 4, which would be cosine of 3 pi over 2, which would be 0. And I could keep going. But what I'm noticing here as I write out these first few terms, the cosine is changing its value. And not only that, eventually it would kind of cycle backwards. So if I go far enough, I would end up with a multiple that brought me back to a cosine of 3 pi over 4. And then I would oscillate through these values once again, right? So there would be this kind of pattern, little cyclical pattern going on where I keep falling through the same numbers. So what that means is that this function here, as I go towards infinity, we're going to be oscillating. And so that tells me if I'm going to be oscillating that this limit does not exist. Okay, so if the limit is oscillating, we won't know what the final value of that limit is because it's going to continue to go between numbers. And so we're going to have a limit that doesn't exist. In terms of the nth term test or the divergence test, what does that mean? Well, when the limit does not exist technically means that it's not 0, right? Because if it was 0, we would have known that it was equal to 0. So does not exist is not equal to 0, and therefore our series, summation from n equals 3 to infinity of cosine n pi over 4, is going to diverge according to our divergence test. Simple as that, right? So we just took our limit, realized that these terms oscillate, and if the terms oscillate, that means that the limit doesn't exist, and does not exist implies that that limit is not 0, right? It's not going to be 0. We would have found it to be 0 if it was. So therefore, our series diverges. Done and done.